Real life glitches caught on camera. A guy pulled out a camera to take a picture of a bird when he seen this helicopter taking off. The helicopter starts flying, but the propellers aren't even moving. A dad was recording his son while he was looking in the mirror. The boy turned around to look at the camera, but his reflection in the mirror didn't follow his actions. In 1995, when Mike Tyson was boxing, there was somebody in the crowd recording on a phone. But the thing is, phones with cameras didn't come out until 5 years after this fight. And finally, these people were having a street race on the highway. As soon as the cars passed, you could see a dog in the middle of the highway. It would have been impossible to miss it, so it had to have teleported. The biggest coincidences in the world. Shortly before their wedding, Nick and Amy decided to go through Nick's baby photos. In this picture of him playing at the beach during a vacation, Amy noticed herself in the background 11 years before they met. A reporter was asking people on the street in the UK if they remembered the final round of the 1967 FA Cup soccer game. The person he chose to interview turned out to be the goalie who played in the game, and look how happy he was.
Do you remember it?
I do, I played in it.
Did you?
I was goalkeeper for Liverpool.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's a stroke of luck me meeting
nice.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sorry, can you remind me of your name?
Tommy Lawrence.
The guys in these pictures look the exact same, but they're not even related. The first picture is Enzo Ferrari, who was a race car driver and the founder of the car brand Ferrari. The other guy is a soccer player named Mesu. But the scariest part is that Enzo died in 1988, which is the same year that Mesu was born. Photos you'll have to look at twice. At first it looks like they're on a really thin edge, but if you tilt your phone, they're all just laying down. At first it looks like this boy has big arms, but it's actually just somebody behind him. This looks like an eyeball, but it's actually just water going down a drain. It looks like this dog's cut in half, but his fur is just blending in with the carpet. I've been looking at this picture for 20 minutes and I still can't figure it out, so let me know in the comments. 10 facts you didn't know that could save your life. If your house ever smells like fish for no reason, 9 times out of 10 it's because there's an electrical fire. If you're in a foreign country and you need to call for help but you don't know the emergency number, call 112 and it'll automatically connect you to the nearest helpline. If a tornado looks like it's not moving, it's actually moving towards you. If you ever wake up to the smell of gas, don't turn on a light. A spark from the light switch could blow up your entire house. Lying flat on your back is the best way to survive a falling elevator. If your hair suddenly stands up, duck and cover because you're about to be struck by lightning. If you ever fall off the edge onto the tracks, don't try and crawl back up. There's a crawl space built to go underneath in case this happens. If a deer runs across the road, it's better to hit it than swerve into the ditch. But if it's a moose, then it's better to swerve into the ditch. Because hitting a moose is like hitting a brick wall. Even if you have no service, you can still dial 911. In an emergency, your phone will connect to the nearest tower. If you ever get kidnapped into the back of a vehicle, disconnect the brake light wire so the cops will pull them over, then kick on the door to let them know that you're there. This squirrel was caught on camera staging its own death. In this viral video, a flying squirrel jumps from a shelf and knocks a broom to the ground. The squirrel then starts to flee the scene, but then he sees an opportunity to rewrite history. He returns to the scene of the crime and grabs the broom, then he flips over on his back, positioning the broom on his stomach, as if he was trapped underneath it. But then the squirrel decides he could make it even more convincing. He brings the broom over his neck, then spreads his arms and legs. Now it looks like a real crime scene. Like and subscribe if you think this flying squirrel deserves an Oscar. 5 moments you wouldn't believe if they weren't caught on camera. When these local workers got a call that a dog fell into a canal, one of them had the idea to be lowered into the water and wait to make a perfectly timed rescue. A group of 4 hikers cross a suspension bridge in New Zealand that's meant to support up to 10 people. But halfway across, the bridge buckles, and 3 of the 4 hikers fall into the water below. Luckily, all of them were uninjured. This dashcam footage captures a truck driver in Saudi Arabia who forgot to lower the truck bed and crashes into a highway sign. People out on a boat in Lake Don Pedro captures a moment a riverboat casino starts to sink. And finally, a couple of teens were hanging in a park when they film a hot air balloon attempting to land nearby. But when the balloon misses its target, it ends up colliding with some telephone wires.
Oh shit. Holy f***.
If you're having a bad day, then watch how this monkey reacts to a magic trick for the first time. People who survived the impossible. In 2007, 37-year-old Alcides arrived at work with his younger brother named Edgar. They rode the elevator all the way up to the 47th floor of an apartment building in New York. Then they walked onto the platform that normally lowers them down so they could clean the windows. But the anchors holding the platform onto the building broke off and they started falling. In only 6 seconds, they fell a total of 472 feet going 120 miles per hour. Edgar hit a wooden fence and unfortunately died on the spot, but his brother survived. He suffered 2 broken legs, a broken arm, a broken foot, 2 collapsed lungs, a bunch of broken ribs, and a crushed vertebrae. He also had a swollen brain and ruptured a lot of organs. They think that the only reason he survived is because he held onto the platform as he fell, and when he hit the ground, the platform created enough barrier in between him and the concrete so he survived. This 40-year-old married a 4-year-old, and the reason why will make you cry. This girl named Abby was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 2, and because of this, she spent most of her time in and out of the hospital. She was really sad until she met her nurse, Matt. He checked up on her every single day because he knew she didn't have much time left. And he also did everything that he could to make her feel loved. But Abby loved him so much that she told her mom that she wanted to marry him. Her mom then phoned Matt and asked him if her daughter could marry him. He said yes, and they had their wedding at the hospital. Even though it wasn't a real wedding and they used a ring pop, the little girl will remember this forever. Stop scrolling! Take this 1-minute personality test with me. This test was designed by psychology professor Richard Wiseman. Start by placing your arms straight out in front of you with your palms down. Then close your eyes. Now imagine that there's helium balloons attached to the fingers on your right hand. At the same time, imagine a pile of books resting on your left hand. So the balloons are pulling your right hand up and the books are pushing your left hand down. Keep your eyes closed for a moment and remember your hands are being pushed and pulled. Now open your eyes. If your hands are far apart, you're more imaginative and sensitive. If your hands are closer together, you're more logical and analytical. And if you didn't close your eyes, Professor Wiseman thinks you're a little suspicious. Companies that lied about their products. The Q-Ray bracelet was released in the 1970s, and it was claimed to improve balance, strength, and overall health. Lots of athletes used to wear them, and I even knew a few people myself who used to wear them. But in 2018, this man disagreed and gave them a $16 million lawsuit. In court, the owner said that the bracelets were ionized and that's how you get the health improvements. So the CBC Marketplace decided to bring one to the lab and analyze it, and discovered that they actually weren't ionized. But that's not all. They also had to give back $87 million worth of refunds to people who bought them and wanted their money back. After this happened, the company filed for bankruptcy. But to this day, they still have a website that they sell them on, and now they have a disclaimer that it won't treat, cure, or prevent any diseases. 4 people who celebrated too early. In this volleyball game, a player managed to save the ball with their foot, and the other team didn't expect it, so they started celebrating. After this goalie saved the ball from going in the net, he stopped paying attention to the ball and celebrated, but then this happened. During the Ironman, which is where you swim 2.5 miles, like 112 miles, and run a 26-mile marathon, this guy started jumping in the air to celebrate, then his ankle gave out on him right before the finish line. And finally, during this race, the person in 5th place started sprinting as fast as she could to pass everyone and win the race, while the person in the lead was already celebrating. This woman won the lottery 4 times. Her name is Joanne R. Ginther, and she is originally from Texas. In 1993, Ginther won her first lottery and a prize of $5.4 million. She won the lottery again in 2006, and then again in 2010, bringing her total lottery winnings to $20.4 million. One mathematician estimated that the odds of hitting 4 big wins were 1 in 18 septillion. So how could this happen? Is she the luckiest woman alive? Probably, but it's more likely that there is some kind of scam involved. Some investigation revealed that Ginther was a mathematics professor who specialized in statistics, and most people who study the case agree that the odds are just too unlikely to be a coincidence. But for now, Ginther enjoys her lottery winnings in Las Vegas and keeps a low profile. Lucky people who survived the impossible. In June 2015, Natalia Pasternak was collecting birch sap with her friend in Siberia when she was suddenly attacked by a huge brown bear for over an hour. While this was going on, her friend went to go get help. The bear buried Natalia because it no longer thought she was alive, and so that way the bear could come back later and eat her. But when the police arrived, they noticed that she was still alive and rescued her. Next up, we have Phineas Gage, who was working with his crew on the construction of railroad tracks near Cavendish, Vermont in 1848. While he was shoving explosives into a hole with an iron bar, the accident happened. The explosives ended up exploding, shooting the 43-inch iron rod straight up into the air, which ended up penetrating his cheek, skull, and brain and landing 25 yards away from him. He managed to walk to a coworker and was taken to the hospital. When he arrived there, everyone was shocked because even though what had just happened, he was still able to communicate fine. After a month of rest, he was finally able to leave his house, but he did end up losing his left eye. 3 tricks Walmart doesn't want you to know. Have you ever been at the store and someone asks you if you want to try a free sample or a new product? Well, a scientist said when you take the free sample, it makes your brain think it's dinner time, making you want to buy it. They sometimes put items on sale to make you think like you're getting a better deal, when in reality they put the sale price as what they would normally sell it for as retail. You may think they just throw products on the shelves randomly, but they actually do it strategically. The top shelf has smaller brands, regional brands, and gourmet brands. They put them there to give tone and texture to the shelf, to help the store stand out from its competitors. The two shelves below are where they put the top selling brand, because it's at the customer's eye level, giving them a higher chance of buying it. Below that are the kids shelves, where they usually place child appealing items, making the kids want to ask their parents if they could buy it. And finally, on the very bottom, they have the local brands and bulk items. This middle school fight takes an unexpected turn. In the cafeteria at Northeast Middle School, a classmate films as two students are about to start a fight. Everyone watches as the two girls start to push each other. Teachers then intervene to break up the fight, and someone calls for the principal. But when the principal gets to the cafeteria to end the fight, she gets a surprise. 50 Cent's In the Club starts to play, and the students start to dance. It turns out the fight was staged, and the prank was in honor of the principal's birthday. Her students and staff wanted a memorable way to show their appreciation for her, and she's quick to join in on the dancing once she catches on. Later, the two girls said they had no idea that the video would get so popular. Here's the only way to survive a tornado. If you're outside and you see one, don't stand there and watch it because it could change direction at any minute. Get inside your house and go to the basement, or get under something to cover yourself from flying glass. If you're away from home and in a vehicle, make sure your seatbelt's done up, put clothes or a blanket over top of you, and protect your skull. If you're not in a vehicle or you can't find a building, find the lowest point like a ditch, lay face down, and put your hands over your head to protect yourself from flying debris. Just make sure to stay away from overpasses and bridges so there's less things flying around. This homeless man is actually an undercover cop. These cops in Maryland decided they wanted to do an undercover sting operation. One of the officers dressed up as a homeless man and made a sign to hold on the side of the road. But the sign didn't say what you probably think. It actually said, "I am not homeless. I'm a Montgomery County police officer looking for cell phone texting violations." They knew that by the time the drivers got close enough to read what was on the sign, it would already be too late if they were on their phone. The man on the side of the road also had a headset and microphone on. So if he saw someone on their phone, he would tell the officers waiting down the road, and then they would pull them over. The reason they decided to do this is because school had just began, so there would be a lot more kids crossing the streets. In total, they gave out 31 tickets. This vehicle started slowly moving out into oncoming traffic in a busy intersection. Then you could see a lady get out of her vehicle and start running towards the car, and it was actually her coworker. When she got to the vehicle, she looked in the window and saw that the driver was unconscious, but she couldn't stop the vehicle by herself. She started waving her hands in the air to try and get people's attention to come and help her, and luckily some people started running over. One person, then another, then a third, a fourth, and a fifth all managed to stop the vehicle. They then tried to open the door to help the person, but it was locked. One of the ladies had a dumbbell in her vehicle, so she gave it to the man and he smashed open the back window. A bunch of people had already called 911, so they arrived. Apparently, the lady had taken medication on an empty stomach, which caused her to pass out while she was driving. 3 criminals who got caught for the dumbest things. In 2011, a man from Florida attempted to rob a convenience store with a squirt gun filled with juice. Luckily, the worker recognized the juice as juice that they sell, and he called the police. They then tracked him down and arrested him. In 2014, a man from Australia attempted to rob a gas station with a banana. He had peeled the banana and used it to simulate the shape of a gun. The man was also arrested and charged with armed robbery. In 2018, a man in California was breaking into a house, but he didn't realize that he had accidentally dialed 911 while he was still in the house. The operator heard noises in the background, so he sent police to the phone's location, where the man was then arrested. People versus Nature, Part 2. These passengers on a cruise ship struggle against massive waves. These hikers in Ireland struggle to walk upright against this intense wind. This man watches helplessly as he loses his house to a river. This skier is just able to outrun a massive avalanche. And finally, this teenage boy endures a hailstorm in his underwear for the sake of making a video. Rich athletes that went completely broke, Part 1. First off, we have Mike Tyson, who's earned over $400 million in his career. He spent a lot of money on random things, but the most random one has to be his tigers. He spent a total of $70,000 to get 3 tigers, but in order to feed them, he has to pay another $200,000 per year. He then had to pay another $125,000 to get them house trained at his $2.5 million mansion. But that didn't seem to work because one of them attacked his neighbor, and he was forced to pay another $250,000 in damage bills. fights. So just from his tigers alone, he spent $650,000, which still isn't that much for him since he can get paid $30 million for a fight. But he kept doing things like that, for example spending $2 million on gold bathtubs, millions more on limos, parties, clothes, vehicles, mansions, and a ton more. Until in 2003 when he went bankrupt, and by the age of 37 he was $38 million in debt. But only 7 years before that he spent over $400,000 on one night of partying for his 30th birthday. The strangest last meal requests on death row. In 1963, Victor Harry Fager was sentenced to death for a kidnap and murder. For his final meal, he requested a single olive with the seed left in it. After his execution, the seed was found in his pocket. They believe he wanted to be buried with it so a tree would sprout on top of him. Gerald Lee Mitchell requested an assorted bag of Jolly Ranchers and he ate every single one. In 1990, James Edward Smith requested a lump of soil. But because dirt isn't on the list of permitted food, he was served a cup of yogurt instead. Thomas Grasso was convicted of robbery and murder. He requested a bunch of things like a cheeseburger from Burger King, 2 strawberry milkshakes, but the thing he wanted the most was SpaghettiOs, which he didn't receive. Instead, he got spaghetti which was supposedly too warm. His last words before dying were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." Moments when singers knew they messed up. During a Fifth Harmony concert before they split up, the singer Camila Cabello was hyping up the crowd when her part of the song started playing, exposing that they were all lip syncing. At the Billboard Awards, the singer Miguel tried jumping from one part of the stage to another, but he accidentally hit a fan. Luckily, the fan wasn't injured too bad, and after in an interview, she said that she still adored him.
I adore him.
And you still adore him, even though you've got an ice pack on your elbow.
But the weird part is, 2 years later, she decided to sue him. This man, who is an author and a rapper, went on live TV and decided to freestyle.
Years ago, they tried to put me in the... This is a lie.
But it didn't go very well, and the next time he was on the show, they introduced him as just an author and not a rapper. Here's what things costed in 1950. At the grocery store, a loaf of bread costed 14 cents. A gallon of milk cost 80 cents, and a dozen eggs cost 49 cents. A trip to the movies would set you back 65 cents for a ticket, and another 10 cents for a bag of popcorn. A bleacher seat for an MLB All-Star game costed $1. A night at a hotel was $5.90. The average price for a new car was around $1,500, and the gas to fill it cost 18 cents a gallon. Finally, a massive 12.5-inch black and white TV was around $150. The voices behind 3 of the most popular cartoons. SpongeBob SquarePants made Nickelodeon $12 billion. The voice actor for SpongeBob is Tom Kenny, who also voiced the mayor in Powerpuff Girls, Dog and Cat Dog, Spyro the Dragon, the Ice King from Adventure Time, and more. Patrick is played by William Mart Fagerbacke, who is in the sitcom Coach, and also How I Met Your Mother. In the movie Moana, Ollie E. Crivello said she wasn't gonna audition because she's seen so many good auditions on YouTube. Then someone finally convinced her. She was the last to audition and she got the part. Maui is played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He said he based the part on his father because Maui was very similar to him. Finally, in Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket Raccoon is voiced by Academy Award winner Bradley Cooper. I'm gonna kill you! And his sidekick Groot is voiced by Vin Diesel from the Fast and Furious series. I am Groot. This is why you should always have a dash cam in your vehicle. This lady was test driving a vehicle from her husband's dealership when a cop passed her, then suddenly turned around and turned on his lights. She was stopped at a red light, then when it turned green, she turned. She didn't know if the officer was pulling her over because she didn't think she did anything wrong, but she pulled over anyway. When she put the vehicle into park, she took off her seatbelt. When the officer walked up to her window, she said that she took off her seatbelt because it was a habit. Then he said the reason he was pulling her over is because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She was being honest when she said it was a habit, but the officer was using it to his advantage. She remembered she had a dash cam and told him that. Then he walked away without giving her a ticket. If she never had a dash cam, it would have been her word versus the officer's. 5 insanely lucky moments in sports. In the final seconds of this high school basketball game, a player throws up a wild full court shot and manages to make it to win the game. Next up, this baton handoff should have been a disaster, but because of a few lucky bounces, the runners were able to save it. During a college football game, this pass should have easily been intercepted, but luckily for Auburn, 2 players from the other team collided, and the ball flew right into the arms of the receiver to complete the touchdown. After an incredible volley, it seems like Roger Federer is about to lose the point, but he's somehow able to make an incredible return between his legs. Okay, this one might not be lucky, this one might just be skill. And finally, Russell Westbrook is out of control as he dribbles towards the net. Not only does he draw a foul, he tosses up a Hail Mary that rolls off the backboard, hits the rim, then bounces in. 2 prison guards who were saved by inmates. In this footage from 2015, 17-year-old Jamal Lutridge is being processed at Fort Lauderdale Lauderdale Police Department. As the officer is booking the teenager for burglary, he gets a pain in his chest and collapses onto the floor. The boy looks around and realizes they're alone, so he starts yelling and kicking on the door to get some help, and ended up saving him from a potentially deadly heart attack. They even had a ceremony to honor him. Inmates from a jail in Georgia were at a cemetery watering the plants and cutting the grass. As the day went on, the guards started to hyperventilate due to the heat and collapsed, leaving the prisoners there without any guards. They could have easily ran away, but they didn't. 6 of the prisoners rushed immediately to help the guard. They took off his bulletproof vest so he could breathe better, and one of them grabbed his phone to call 911. And because they saved a life, all 6 of them got their sentences reduced by a quarter. The reason there's UFO sightings in Area 51. In the 1950s, US planes were doing low-flying recon missions over Russia. They did these missions to obtain more information because they were enemies, but they were constantly worried about being spotted and shot down. So in 1954, the president authorized the development of a high-flying top-secret aircraft. They needed a location that wasn't easily accessed by the public, so they chose Area 51. In 1955, there were spottings of UFOs in that area, and this is because they were testing the new aircraft that they built. It could fly higher than 60,000 feet in the air, and at the time, normal aircrafts could only fly 10,000 to 20,000 feet in the air. So when pilots would spot this top-secret aircraft above them, they would think it's a UFO. This 7-year-old girl saves herself from a creepy man. Emmy McCardle was laying in her front yard when a vehicle drove by. The car's window then rolled down and a man yelled hello. The girl looked up, then immediately ran towards her front door. While she was running, the man asked her if she wanted a bicycle, and this is what she said.
No.
Later in an interview, she said he seemed like a tricky man and was taught to stay away from them. People with real superpowers. Tim Cridlin feels no physical pain whatsoever. He doesn't feel needles in his skin. He doesn't feel high and low temperatures, and basically anything else a normal person would feel. Gino Martino, or better known as Hammerhead, has the ability to break concrete blocks, iron bars, and baseball hats with his head, and he even showed that he could drop a bowling ball from 5 meters and land on his head. Natalia Demkina has extraordinary vision. Her eyesight allows her to see everything that normal people could see, but she also has X-ray vision, so she could identify diseases just by looking at a person. Raj Mohan Nair can endure an electrical shock with the force of a few amperes. And to give you an example, a normal person can only endure a few milliamps before dying. Finally, Liu Thao Lin is the Magnet Man. He can attract metal objects to his body, and he can hold up to 80 pounds of items. Apparently, it's a sticky property in his skin, and is an ability that may be hereditary. No one came to his birthday party, so Chuck E. Cheese did this. It was Evan's 4th birthday, and he celebrated in Chuck E. Cheese. His mom prepared a bunch of candy, a birthday cake, big balloons, and a bunch more. She also sent out 30 invitations to his friends. Evan was so excited, so they left early to play games with his friends before the party. He was the first one to get there, so he waited at the door for his friends to arrive. He waited for a long time, but no one showed up. One of the workers had to go to the bathroom to avoid crying because of how bad she felt for the boy. Evan and his parents decided to just go home. After a couple of days, the same worker posted on Facebook asking if anyone would be willing to give Evan a present. Within 3 to 4 days, she had over a dozen presents to give to him. She contacted Evan's mom and said that the store had a surprise for Evan. So they drove over and she surprised Evan with all the presents. The worker said that seeing Evan smile was the only thing she wanted that day. 3 times The Simpsons predicted the future. In a 2012 episode, Lady Gaga performed for the town hanging in midair. 5 years later, she flew off the Houston Energy Stadium roof in real life to perform for the Super Bowl halftime show. In 2008, they showed Homer trying to vote for Barack Obama in the election, but the machine kept changing his vote. 4 years later, a voting machine in Pennsylvania was removed because it kept changing people's votes from Barack Obama to his rival Mitt Romney. Finally, in 1994, a school bully wrote "Beat Up Martin" on his Apple Newton, which was a product before the iPhone was made, but it got translated to "Eat Up Martha." A few years later, when making the iPhone keyboard, they added the autocorrect feature and said it was inspired by this episode of The Simpsons. People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident. Jason Padgett was a party animal who wasn't interested in mathematics at all, but one day at a party, he was hit in the head so hard that he got a concussion. The concussion caused him to become a mathematical genius. It made him learn fractal geometry, which he had never been taught before. When Derek Amato was 39 years old, he hit his head after diving into the swimming pool and was diagnosed with a concussion and 35% hearing loss. After that, Derek began to see black and white keys in his head, and out of nowhere, he began to play the piano like an expert. Ben McMahon was in a car accident in 2015 and fell into a coma for a week. When he woke up, he could speak perfect Chinese, even though he had only learned the basics as a child. Tony Caesarea was struck by lightning after making a call in a phone booth. Within a couple days, he was addicted to music, which he wasn't before. After trying a piano, he became a musical artist, composing his own music. This woman lost out on $120,000 when she ate a potato chip. Danielle Sager is enjoying a bag of Walker's potato chips when she notices something interesting. One of the chips is shaped like a perfect symmetrical heart. Danielle thought it was cute, so she snapped a picture to send to her friends, then she ate it. But when her friends responded, she realized that she made a huge mistake. But before I tell you why, I found this app that lets you put 2 people together together and figure out what their baby would look like. Just press the link in the comments to try it for yourself. The reason it was a huge mistake is because Walker's, the company that makes the potato chips, was holding a competition for their customers to find the best heart-shaped chip, and the prize was $120,000. Her friends told her not to eat the chip, but it was too late. People versus animals. This man brings his young daughter fishing for catfish, but when he goes to reel in his catch, they get an unexpected surprise.
Oh my god! That's a big gator, buddy.
This mama moose charges at an unexpected cyclist. This man tries to ride a pig, but the pig said nope. This man is quick to give up on his own advice while handling a lion. And finally, this boy in Australia was just trying to ride on his scooter when he came across a magpie that tried to run him off the road. The weirdest World War II weapons that you've never heard about. The Kremlov periscope rifle. It's originally an STG-44, but modified with two accessories. A periscope and a bent barrel, which could rotate up to 90 degrees. The purpose of this gun is to allow shooters to stay in cover while still being able to shoot. The Schwerer Gustav cannon is the largest artillery piece built to this day. It could only be transported by train tracks and needed 2,500 people to place the tracks. It also had to be assembled and deassembled each time, which took another 250 people 3.5 days to assemble. The shells it shot weighed over 7 tons and could travel over 30 miles long. This 3-year-old was kidnapped in the middle of the day. On the sidewalk, you can see a grandma walking with 3 grandchildren, when all of a sudden, a man covering himself with a blanket comes and kidnaps one of the toddlers. The poor old lady, who probably hasn't ran in years, had to make the tough decision to leave her 2 other grandchildren and run after the kidnapper. You can also see a man get out of his car and run after the kidnapper as well. Since it was the middle of the day, lots of people saw this happening and they cornered him into a gas station. Then he set the toddler down and walked away like nothing even happened. He was later found by the police sleeping in the doorway of a store and he was arrested. This 90-year-old woman lives out her birthday dream thanks to a biker gang. This is Barbara Morris, an elderly woman that lives in a nursing home in Manchester, England. Several years ago, Barbara told her children that if she lived to 90 years old, she had a birthday wish: to take a ride on a motorcycle like she did when she was younger. Barbara had figured that her children had forgot about her biker dreams, so she was stunned that on her 90th birthday, her son surprised her with a local biker gang and a Harley Davidson for her to ride. Barbara hopped on the back of the bike and rode with the 13 other bikers nearly 7 miles to a nearby pub. Her children describe her as having a daredevil spirit and nerves of steel. But for Barbara, she said she was just happy to feel wind blowing on her face. 5 genius products that were invented by accident. The Post-it was invented by Dr. David Spencer, who was trying to make a really strong adhesive. But what he actually did was the exact opposite: a weak adhesive that sticks lightly to surfaces. Popsicles were invented by an 11-year-old boy when he accidentally left a cup of lemonade outside overnight. He had left the stirring stick inside it and the liquid froze around it. Play-Doh was originally invented as a wallpaper cleaner until it became a children's toy. Tea bags were invented to carry samples of tea, but customers found them useful, letting them soak inside of hot water. And finally, bubble wrap. It was originally invented to be used as a 3D wallpaper, but when that failed, the inventors decided to start marketing it as a packing material. If you see mold on your bread, don't eat the rest of it. You've probably at some point in your life found mold on bread and decided to cut it off and eat the rest of it. Well, by doing this, it doesn't mean the rest of it is free from mold, because mold is like fungus. If you could see the mold, then underneath there's a bunch of tiny hidden roots called hyphae. And those roots release spores called mycotoxins, which can sometimes cause diseases in humans. So by eating the good part, there's a chance that it can still be moldy. After 93 days under the sea, this man is 10 years younger. You might remember Joe DeTurry from one of my previous videos. He's the former US Navy diver and biomedical engineer who locked himself in an underwater pod for nearly 100 days to document the effects of pressurization on humans. And as it turns out, the effects are pretty good. After returning to land, scientists and doctors determined that this experiment set his biological clock back approximately 10 years. Living in a pressurized cabin triggered a 20% growth in the length of his telomeres, which are what keeps your DNA from breaking down. As we age, our telomeres generally shorten, but DeTurry was able to reverse the effects. His body's stem cell count grew by nearly 1,000%, and he experienced a 60% increase in deep restorative sleep. More research is needed to fully understand the effects of living under the sea, but it could be the key to aging backwards. Here's why they're called killer whales. No fatal attacks on humans have been documented in the ocean, but they're a huge threat to sea life. When you think of the top ocean predator, you probably think of the great white shark. But it's actually the killer whale because they have a diverse diet and they eat everything. They hunt in packs like wolves and eat everything from very small fish to big sharks. The 5 most illegal products on Pawn Stars. Number 1, an antique gun desk. This type of weapon is classed as a novelty weapon because of its low capacity, rarity, and difficulty in finding ammunition. But the one showed on the TV show had 1 round of ammunition left in it. And to make it legal, you either have to deactivate the device or make it unusable. Number 2, a turtle shell guitar. The shells of turtles are made of 60 interconnected bones. They're so strong that they started making guitars out of them until it was illegal. Number 3, a German spy camera. It was the first spy camera manufactured by the Minox company and was designed by Walter Zapp in 1936. Number 4, Penn State University orange bowl ring. Penn State items are highly wanted, but in this case the engraving was erased, making it illegal to buy and sell. And number 5, a Tyrian shekel coin. Tyre was the most important city in Phoenicia, which is now southern Lebanon. Its coins were given out from 130 BC to 70 AD, and apparently the one taken to the show was stolen. 3 Secret Service tactics that are insane. The president's main way of transportation is called the Beast. It's a Cadillac limousine with over 7 tons of armor, which is 8 inches thick. It can defend against gunfire and explosives, but it never travels alone. In the line of vehicles, there's a black van that holds the counter-assault team, and in total there's 12 vehicles that each cost over $1 million. When chefs are cooking food for the president, every single one of their movements is monitored by an agent to make sure they're not poisoning the food. When the president travels, chefs go with him to personally prepare his food. He doesn't eat any food that's gifted to him, and when he buys food at a restaurant, he doesn't actually eat it. It's usually just for a photo. The president gets lots of online threats, and even if it's just a joke, they investigate every single aspect of that person's life. Their neighbors, friends, and employees can all be interviewed. They do this to see how serious the threat is, then decide if they need to take action on the person or not. A bank accidentally deposited $37 million into this lady's bank account, and you won't believe what she did with it. One day, a lady named Ruth went online to look at her bank account and she noticed a bunch of money that wasn't hers. She then tried calling the bank to figure out how the money got there and who it belonged to, but they were closed. She then screenshotted her bank account and sent the pictures to her husband to see if he knew what was going on, but he had no clue. So the next day when the bank was open, she called again and they said that they made an error. So she got in her vehicle, drove to the bank, and gave back every single dollar that wasn't hers. Good thing that it was an honest person, because if it was someone else, they may not have returned it. People who did crazy things to avoid being caught. Frank Abagnale Jr. was a con artist and imposter who managed to avoid the law for many years by pretending to be various professionals, including a pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer. He even managed to pass an exam and become an attorney for a little while before he got caught. His story was later turned into a movie and is called Catch Me If You Can. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was a Mexican drug lord who managed to avoid being caught by using tunnels and secret passageways to avoid detection. He was eventually caught and is currently serving life in prison. Finally, Edward Snowden was a former National Security Agency contractor who leaked classified information about the agency's surveillance activities. To avoid prosecution, he fled to Russia where he was granted protection. He currently lives in Moscow, but he remains a controversial person. 5 secrets you didn't know about everyday items. I think everyone knows that the metal part on a tape measure is so you could hook it onto things and measure it. And there's also a small hole that you could hook onto nails to measure as well. But what most people don't know is that on the side there's a sharp edge that's meant to mark the thing that you're measuring so you don't have to use a pencil. You may have noticed this small indent on the bottom of most bottles, and it actually has a purpose. Most bottles have a logo on them, and companies want the logo to be in the same spot on each bottle. So it holds each bottle in the same position while the machine applies the artwork. Most people's cabinets have a space underneath them, and it's not just for looks. It's called a toe kick, and it lets you stand closer to the counter, and also so when you open them, they don't hit your feet. A long time ago, when typers used typewriters, they got so good at their job that they started typing too fast and would cause the arms to cross over and stop working. So they scattered the letters around to make it harder for people to type as fast. The 5 worst advertising fails. Snow White is on this package for apples, but I don't know if I'd trust them because in the movie, she got poisoned by one. On the box for Connect 4, it shows that it includes blue discs to block your opponent. And it shows the red player using one when they could have just won. On this ad for this massager, it shows that you could use it anywhere, including in the office, at home, and I guess even while you're driving with your eyes closed. This store was having a sale on computers, but apparently these PCs won't last long. But what they were really trying to say is that they'll sell out fast. Now before I show you the worst one, I found this app that tells you your celebrity lookalike, and apparently I look like Robert Downey Jr. Just click the link in the comments to try it and let me know who you get. Finally, on this ad for unbreakable wine glasses, it shows a kid holding one. This urban legend from the 1960s will shock you. One day when a girl was driving home at night, she noticed a truck following her. The vehicle kept flashing their high beams at her and eventually ran into her vehicle. When she finally got home, she ran as fast as she could from her vehicle to her house so she could call 911. But so did the man following her. He pulled in behind her and got out of his truck, but then she realized he wasn't trying to hurt her, he was trying to help her. She then heard him yell, there's someone in the back of your car. Every time the man in the back of her car went to attack her, the guy driving the truck would flash his high beams, which would make the man duck down. They ran inside and locked the doors, then called the police. Secrets that carnivals don't want you to know. If you've ever tried playing the basketball game at a carnival, you know that it's really hard to make a shot. And this is because the hoops aren't actually round, they're shaped as an oval to make it harder for you to get it in. Also higher than the regulation height. And they also sometimes inflate the ball more than they're supposed to make it bigger and harder to get in. In the game where you throw darts to try and pop the balloons, they deflate the balloons a lot, making them smaller and harder to hit, but also if you do hit them, less likely to pop. On top of that, the darts aren't as sharp as professional ones. They have a dull edge to them. Crazy ideas that actually worked. In some parts of the world, sunlight doesn't always reach, especially in the winter. So an engineer and an architect placed a giant mirror on the side of the mountain to reflect the sunlight. Alex too, who was a British student, needed money to pay for college. So he created a website with 1 million blank pixels, each one costing $1. On the website, companies could buy a pixel to place their logo and a link to their website. It was really successful, and in no time, Alex earned $1 million. In 2015, scientists discovered that due to the sun, a city's drinking water reservoir was evaporating and had increased levels of bromate, which is from the sun hitting the water and can cause nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. So the solution was simple. They covered the water with millions of non-toxic plastic balls, which gave shade to the water and fixed both problems. Why squeezing your pimples is a bad idea. Our body always tells us when something's wrong. That's why when the pores of our skin become clogged and infected with bacteria, we get a red, lumpy, pus-filled pimple. Trying to make it go away faster by popping it is a terrible idea. The pressure you apply by squeezing your pimple will force the pus outwards, tearing your skin, creating a new wound that can easily turn into a scar. You're also likely to worsen the wound by adding new bacteria from your hands, because at least 150 types of bacteria are on your hands even when you think they're clean. Another thing that could happen is if you don't remove the entire pimple and accidentally push some dirt inside it, you can get an even bigger pimple and increase the chances of it being infected. If you have lots of acne, it's better to go to a specialist who knows how to treat them, and if you only have a bit, just wait for it to go away on its own. Rules that presidents have to follow. Every single letter that they get in the mail, or an email, or even a phone call has to be approved by the Secret Service first. After becoming president, they will never be able to drive themselves again unless it's on private property, even if you're a former president. If they want to go somewhere, they'll either have to be driven by an escort or the Secret Service. They're also never allowed to be alone again. So if they want to go for a walk or go to the store to grab something quickly, the Secret Service will have to go with them. They will also get their own library, and in that library will be transcripts of everything they've ever said to the public. Here's the only way to survive a plane crash. When booking your flight, try to get a seat in the exit row or within 5 seats from it. People in those seats have the highest survival rates. Wear pants and a long sleeve shirt made of non-flammable material like cotton or denim. And sturdy shoes. You want clothes that don't restrict movement but also protect you against flames and flying debris. Bring a smoke hood or a wet cloth in a plastic bag. Most people survive impact but die of smoke inhalation. If you don't have these, breathe through your clothes. When boarding the plane, count the seats between you and the nearest front and rear emergency exit. So if it gets smoky, you could feel your way to safety. When instructed, brace yourself by putting your feet on the ground, crossing your arms on the seat in front of you, and lowering your head. Remain that way until you come to a complete stop, then by crouching so you still get some air, leave the plane and get away as far as possible. This is the smartest scam in history, and you won't believe how he did it. A con artist decided he wanted to build a skyscraper in Texas. On the blueprint, he put it was going to be 480 tall. He didn't specify whether it was 480 centimeters, inches, or feet. So the investors just assumed that he meant 480 feet tall and invested $200,000, which is around $3 million today. He did make the skyscraper, but it was only 4 stories high and 480 inches tall. Then he kept the rest of the money for himself. The investors decided to bring him to court, but the judge decided that the investors got exactly what they signed for and the man got to keep the money. Miracles people claim to have caught on tape. On Route 385 in Memphis, Tennessee, a driver lost control of his Jeep and went off the road. The car was immediately engulfed with flames. The driver escaped unharmed, but the curious thing is the police found a Bible that was untouched by the fire. It was perfectly fine even though the car was almost in ashes. In the Philippines, a little girl woke up at her funeral. Apparently she was ill and had a high fever which caused her to go into a coma. But the doctors didn't know that and declared her dead the day before her funeral. But luckily her relatives found out in time. Prahlad Yani was a Hindu ascetic who claimed he hadn't eaten or drank anything in over 70 years. Specialists in the scientific department put him in hospital for 15 days under 24-hour supervision and claimed he hadn't eaten or drank anything in those 15 days. According to the man, this can be achieved by meditation and a divine blessing. The strangest Guinness World Records you've never heard of. The world's strangest diet belongs to a Frenchman who throughout his life ate a total of 18 bicycles, 15 grocery carts, 7 TVs, 6 chandeliers, 2 beds, a pair of skis, and a computer. The world's world's longest noodle was made in a restaurant in China and measured over 3,000 meters in length. A lab and research employee for Dr. Scholl's holds a record for the most armpits and feet sniffed. In 2019, the fastest time to push an orange 1 mile with their nose went to Arita Furman, who completed it in 22 minutes and 41 seconds. Finally, the longest attack of hiccups belongs to Charles Osborne, who got the hiccups in 1922 and had them for 68 years until the day he died. This waitress's random act of kindness changed her life. 18-year-old Yvonne Williams is working at a Waffle House in Texas trying to save money for college. But one day she noticed a customer struggling. An elderly man sitting in the corner was having trouble cutting his food, so Williams decided to stop during a busy shift and go cut the food for him. Another customer at the restaurant snapped the photo and posted it on Facebook. The picture went viral and the young lady became a local hero. The story caught the attention of the city's mayor, who surprised her at work by declaring an official Evony Williams Day. The Texas Southern University also rewarded her with a $16,000 scholarship for her kindness. This cop found a missing boy because he plays video games. One Saturday night, a 911 call was made reporting a missing boy. Gary Strebel was the officer assigned, so he drove to the house to look for clues. When he was looking in the boy's bedroom, he found a laptop that was left open. He also saw that Discord was left open on it, and if you don't know what that is, it's an app that lets you voice chat and text while playing video games with other people. Luckily, the officer had been playing video games since he was just a little boy, and he uses Discord when he's not at work. He decided to open his personal Discord and send a friend request to the missing boy. He figured that if the boy had the Discord app downloaded on his phone, he could trick him into answering. He also noticed that the boy had just been texting with other people on Discord, and within a few minutes, he responded. The man said right away that he was an officer, but the boy didn't believe it since he was using Discord. But then he explained that he's just a normal guy who likes to play video games when he's not at work. He didn't hear back from the boy, so he thought his plan had failed, but then he responded. He said, "Okay, I'll take your word for it and come back home." About an hour later, he returned back home and he wasn't hurt. This Kung Fu master appeared on a TV show in Hawaii. He showed how he could break concrete blocks with a glass. But when the show host went to the next block, he wanted to show the audience how hard the bricks were. But he accidentally broke it by tapping on it because he thought it was made out of a harder material. These are people who expose themselves on live TV. Let's continue. The show Inside Edition wanted to catch a fraud who said that she could read minds. So they invited her onto the show to try and solve an unsolved case. Then the man showed her a picture of a girl and he said it was his missing sister. The lady then charged him $400 and after said that the girl in the picture is no longer alive. Right after this, Inside Edition's host exposed her by saying the girl in the picture was actually her when she was younger. Peter Popoff claimed to take away people's illnesses. He would have a large crowd, then call out a random person and tell them their name and what was affecting them. But one time, someone brought in a radio scanner and discovered that he actually had a small earpiece in his ear. His wife would talk to him through it and tell him the name, address, and illness of his audience members. He was called out about this on The Tonight Show, and after that, he went bankrupt. These are the most expensive mistakes. If this first one wasn't caught on camera, I don't think anyone would have believed him. This person just wanted to get a Coca-Cola for $2.75, but the vending machine glitched, charging him $280, and he didn't even get a drink. And finally, we have this guy who was happy about getting his brand new 65-inch TV until this happened. Now, I have no idea why this person was recording, because if they would have just helped, I don't think this would have happened. 3 animals that you'll be glad are extinct. First off, we have the Gigantopithecus blackie, which is the largest ape that ever lived. It was almost 10 foot tall and weighed over 1,100 pounds. It also walked on its fists. But surprisingly, it didn't eat meat, but would still protect itself from its predators, which included tigers, leopards, and bears. The Beelzebuffoampinga was a large frog that was 40 centimeters tall and weighed almost 10 pounds. Instead of eating flies and small bugs, it would lie hidden until lizards or young dinosaurs approached, then it would snap them up with their enormous jaws. And lastly, we have the Brontosaurus burmisteri, which was the largest carnivorous bird ever at 10 feet tall, also weighing around 1,000 pounds with massive claws. It was also as quick as a cheetah, and its kick was hard enough to shatter a bone. The Power of Time Part 2. This guy's mom gave him and his brother the exact same teddy bear when they were born, but you could tell which one had more love. These indents in the carpet are from this person's cat walking the exact same path every single day. These 3 knives have been used so much at this person's work that they're almost gone. This is someone's carpet after moving their bed for the first time in 60 years. Here's this person's sun damage after being a delivery truck driver for 28 years. Here's what the floor of a bank looks like after years of people standing in the same spot. Now before I show you the craziest one, I found this app that lets you create your own fonts to use as your keyboard. Just press us a link in the comments to get it. Here's the difference in stairs built in 1829 versus 2005. This is the worst form of torture. White room torture is when a prisoner is locked up in a soundproof room that's completely white. The walls are white, their clothes are white, and all they could eat is white rice on a white plate. If they have to go to the bathroom, they slip a white piece of paper under the door. Then a guard with padded shoes opens another door with a white bathroom. After months or even years in the room, the prisoner would start to have hallucinations. They then start to forget everything, including who they are and what their parents look like. Past and present technology, then and now. The first ever mechanical calculator was built in between 1851 and 1915. It could perform the 4 basic operations: addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. Today's calculators aren't mechanical, they're electronic, and they can complete all sorts of mathematical problems within seconds. The first ever cell phone weighed over 2 pounds and costed $4,000. It could only be used for 30 minutes and then it would take 10 hours to charge. Today, an iPhone 13 weighs 0.38 pounds and costs around $800. It charges in 1.5 hours, and the battery can last approximately 20 hours. The first TV was mechanical and appeared in 1920. Models B and C consisted of cabinets with a small display, and it could barely reach 30 lines per frame. Today's TVs have digital technology and have a resolution of up to 8K, which is 33.2 megapixels per frame, or 175 times more than the first ever TV. This chimp was separated from her newborn baby, and when they reunite, it might make you cry. At the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas, a chimpanzee named Mahale delivers a baby chimp via an emergency C-section. But the baby chimp, named Kachiza, has trouble getting enough oxygen, so he needs extra medical attention, which means he had to be separated from his mother. They kept the two apart for nearly 2 days. When the baby was healthy enough, Mahale got to finally see him again. The zookeepers watched closely as the two were reunited. At first, Mahale seems unsure, as if she doesn't recognize the baby chimp. But then when the baby reaches out his arms for his mom, this is what happens.
What a good girl.
5 of the newest words added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2023. First up is dap, which is defined as a casual greeting, typically involving slapping palms, bumping fists, or snapping fingers. The acronym CODA, meaning Child of Deaf Adult, has been around since the 90s, but was recently popularized by the Oscar movie with the same name, and now is officially in the dictionary. Porch pirate refers to someone who steals a package that is left unattended outside of the recipient's house. Final girl is a character term in horror movies, referring to the female protagonist who defeats the villain and is the only one left alive. And finally, a super yacht is, well, exactly what it sounds like. An extravagantly luxurious boat reserved for the richest of the rich. South Korea puts 90% of food waste to good use. Every year, the human population generates 1.4 billion tons of food waste. The majority of that waste ends up in landfills, except in South Korea, which has the most advanced food waste disposal infrastructure in the world. South Korean cuisine tends to result in more food waste because of the tradition for dozens of side dishes. And because the country has lots of mountains, there isn't much space for landfills. So in 1995, South Korea banned food scraps from going into landfills. And now, 90% of that waste gets turned into animal food, fertilizer, and fuel used to heat thousands of houses. This is how to escape quicksand. If you ever find yourself stuck in quicksand, don't panic. Despite what happens in the movies, it's actually almost impossible to drown, because quicksand is denser than the human body, so it can't pull you under. So the air in your lungs will keep your upper body above the sand and only your legs will be under. So to free your lower body, first wiggle one leg in a circular motion. This will create small pockets of air for water to trickle down into. The water will help loosen the sand and allow you to pull your leg out to surface. Now with one leg free, kneel forward onto that knee to distribute the weight. Then repeat the circular motion with your other leg, and congratulations, you survived quicksand. This teacher gets pranked and it makes his day. At first, you can tell he wasn't in the best mood based on his facial expressions. A student was also doing work from another class and the teacher wasn't too happy about that. But that all changed when he sat down.
I have to finish. Well, you can finish it after you start my final. You're on my time now. All right. Okay, you need to separate.
What the heck was that?
Somebody's seeing a prank too. Hey! Hey, look here, grab me that rubber. You guys.
This is the luckiest man alive. Frain Selleck was riding a train when it went off the tracks into a river. 17 passengers died, but he was able to swim to shore with nothing but a broken arm. The next year when he was on a plane, a door detached from the aircraft and it crashed. 19 people died, but Selleck was found in a haystack with a few bruises. In 1996, he was on a bus when it drove into a river. 4 people died, but again he survived. In 1970, his car's fuel tank exploded on the highway. In 1973, his fuel tank leaked and his car caught on fire. Fast forward to 1995 and he was in another bus crash. The next year when he was driving, a truck came barreling towards him. He jumped out of his vehicle and watched it explode. 5 people who beat the system. This teenager's parents were gone for 5 days, so they put a camera in the house. So the kid put the camera towards a picture of the house, so their parents wouldn't know if they have anyone over. This boy's mom told him to go play outside. So what did he do? He brought his computer and played outside. If you park in front of this sign, you have to pay. And if you park behind this sign, you'll get towed away. But they didn't say anything about parking in the middle. On a bonus question, the teacher put, hint, it's not Greenland. So that's what the student put and they got the mark. Now before I show you the smartest person, I found an app that gives you a personalized workout based on your body type and goals. Just press the link in the comments to get it. Finally, this person parked in an illegal spot, so they gave themselves a fake ticket so they wouldn't get a real one. Dumb inventions that people actually use. The Hug Me pillow was designed for people who miss their partners. Its shape stimulates half of the upper back of a human and an arm to cuddle with. One of the sillier inventions that are actually really popular are cutters. They make cutters for avocados, strawberries, bananas, and even boiled eggs. The egg cracker has become really popular. It's a pretty simple machine. You just place the egg inside, press the device, and it cracks the shell. The toothpaste dispenser is something that lots of people didn't know they needed until it came out. You just put your toothbrush in the opening, a little bit of toothpaste comes out, and that's it. The ostrich pillow's design promises that you'll have a very comfortable nap. Basically, you just put your head inside the pillow, and depending on what position you're lying in, you could also put your hands inside. This man went to jail for stealing $1. James Verone went into the RBC bank without a gun and handed the bank teller a note that said this.
This is a bank robbery. Please only give me $1.
Then he told her he was gonna go wait on the chair for the police to show up, which is what he did. He chose to steal $1 because he wanted them to know he wasn't doing it for the money. But you may be thinking, then why would he want to arrest himself? Well, the reason is because he has no medical insurance. He has a growth on his chest, 2 ruptured discs in his back, and a problem with his left foot. And he said he thought the most logical thing to do was go to jail so he could get medical care and a place to sleep. Kids who remember their past lives. Sam Taylor is a boy who was born shortly after his grandfather passed away, and in his first year he already had memories of his grandfather's life. He even said to his father, I remember when I used to change your diapers, when Sam's father was changing his. Shanae is a boy who was born with 2 birthmarks on his head. From the age of 3 he started having memories of his past life as a teacher, who was killed by a gunshot to the head. James Leininger is a kid who started having nightmares at the age of 2, about his past life as a World War II pilot. He claimed that in his past life he was the pilot James Houston, who was shot down in action in the Pacific Ocean. 3 rejected Shark Tank pitches that made millions. First off, we have the Ring doorbell. So if you don't know what it is, it's a doorbell that has a camera on it, and whenever it detects motion or someone rings the doorbell, it sends a notification to your phone, where you can then go onto the app and see them or even talk to them. When Jamie Siminoff appeared on the show, the company was worth $7 million. Now the company doesn't just make doorbells, but they also make home security systems and a bunch more. Amazon gave them $1 billion to have their items on their website. The Books is an online flower delivery service. In 2014, they left Shark Tank without an investor. But 3 years later, one of the sharks needed flowers for his wedding and ended up using the service. After that, he ended up investing in them. And in 2017, they sold $1 million of flowers in just 1 day. Finally, the bed jet is placed under your covers and allows you to change the temperature, rather than changing it for your whole house, which costs more money. But since he had no sales, all the sharks were out. When he released it to the market, he sold $3 million worth in his first month. This mom lets her kids do whatever they want, and you won't believe what they can do. Her name is Leah Marshall, a 36-year-old, and her strategy is to say yes to everything. So first off, for breakfast, she allows them to eat any type of candy they want, including ice cream. Secondly, they don't have to do their homework or even go to school at all. They could stay home and play video games all day. And lastly, she even allows them to swear at her. Now you may think her kids are probably rude and spoiled, but they're actually the opposite. Since their mom says yes to everything and lets them do whatever they want, those things become less special to them. So for example, after a few months of eating candy for breakfast, they're sick of it and no longer crave those things. 5 Disney secrets you didn't know. If you look closely, some scenes from different Disney movies are quite similar. This is because the drawings were made by hand, and the animators only make a few changes to create a new scene. Lilo's voice belongs to the actress who played the role of Samara Morgan in the movie The Ring. Since Walt Disney wanted to spend most of his free time at Disneyland, he created a secret apartment on the 2nd floor of the fire station on Main Street, located on the famous avenue that leads to the park's Central Plaza. The name of the wizard in the movie Fantasia is Yensen, which is Disney in reverse. Simba means lion in the Swahili language, and Boo's real name is Mary because the person who plays producer is called Mary Gibbs. Finally, Walt ordered to build a bunch of tunnels underneath the park to allow the actors to get from place to place without the public noticing so they wouldn't lose the magic of the place. The craziest things found by airport security. In an Amsterdam airport, 200 bags of tarantulas were found. In 2015, a child was found in a suitcase that belonged to a 19-year-old girl traveling from Morocco to Spain. A couple from India were arrested at the airport for smuggling small bars of pure gold that they glued to their feet. At Shanghai airport, they opened a suitcase that contained live snakes, and in total there was 121 of them. 2 women were arrested at Liverpool airport for attempting to transport the body of a dead relative in a wheelchair. And finally, a tiger cub was found in the suitcase of a Thai woman traveling to Iran. She tried to make them think it was a stuffed animal because there were other stuffed animals in the suitcase. But in the end, the woman was arrested and the tiger was taken for special care. A musical instrument that could be played without touching it. The theremin was invented by accident in 1920 by the Russian musician and scientist Leon Theremin. He was creating a device that could measure the density of gases, but realized what he made produced sound that changed according to your hand position. The instrument consists of a box with 2 metal antennas on the sides and oscillators that control the frequency and amplitude of sound. The electrical signals produced by the instrument are then sent to a loudspeaker. The first antenna is on the right, which controls the pitch. The closer you place your hand, the sharper the sound is. The farther you move your hand away from the antenna, the louder it will be. The theremin has been used several times to create themes for television shows and was played in the 70s by Jimmy Page, who's the founder of the Led Zeppelin band. The strangest last meal requests on death row. Philip Workman's final request was to get a large vegetarian pizza delivered to a homeless person. But the prison denied doing that, so he ate nothing. On the day of his death, many people from around the world donated pizza to homeless shelters. David Leon Woods was on death row for 22 years before he was put to death. For his last meal, he chose a pizza and a birthday cake, which he shared with his family. But the strangest part is, his birthday wasn't for another 3 months after his death. John Wayne Gacy, otherwise known as the killer clown named Pogo, ate 12 fried shrimp, a bucket of KFC chicken, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. 5 rare phobias you've never heard of. Plutophobia is fear of money. People with this condition are afraid of handling, making, and being around money. Some people might even sabotage their own careers to avoid making money. Omphalophobia is fear of belly buttons. In an extreme case, one person with this phobia became physically sick from just the sight of a belly button. Decidophobia is exactly what it sounds like, a fear of making decisions. Dextrophobia is the fear of having objects on the right side of your body. This can also include the fear of being right-handed. And lastly, there's phobophobia, which is, you guessed it, the fear of phobias. This McDonald's worker paid for her family's meal after the mom forgot her wallet, and the way she repays him will shock you. When Brittany was driving her 3 kids home from football, her youngest kid started crying because he was hungry. So she decided to go to McDonald's and get everyone food. When she got to the drive-thru, she ordered, then pulled up to the first window to pay. But then she noticed she forgot her wallet. She then looked up to the McDonald's worker with tears in her eyes because she was so stressed, and told him to cancel her order. The worker was a 16-year-old kid named Wyatt. Without even thinking, he pulled out his wallet and paid for the family's food. The family later found out that he was saving up money to buy a car, and the way they repay him will shock you. But before I tell you how, my merch just released today. If you want to support me and get some sick looking clothes while you're at it, just press a link in the comments to check it out. The family set up a GoFundMe page, and it raised over $50,000. Homeless people who won the lottery. Laszlo Andrzejczyk was an alcoholic from Hungary who lost everything. He was homeless for 7 years with hundreds of unpaid debts, but his luck changed when he bought a lottery ticket for just a few pennies. He won 636 million Hungarian guilders, which is equivalent to $2.5 million. A man living in his car from England bought a lottery ticket with his last few pennies. He put the ticket away, and 6 months after he bought it, he found out that he had won £250,000. A homeless man who lived in a tent won $50,000 after buying a ticket. Even though he could have bought a small house to live in, he chose to upgrade his tent and help his homeless friends by giving them each $100. You can't call yourself a driver if you don't know these 3 secrets. If you get stuck in snow, sand, or mud, you should move the steering wheel from side to side to give the tires more room to maneuver, then put the vehicle in reverse to make even more space. Get the tire jack from the back of the vehicle, then raise it into the air so you can place branches or floor mats underneath the wheels. This will give the tires something to grip on, so now you can just drive out and you're free. Turn on the air conditioning even in the winter. Even if it's cold outside, you should turn on your air conditioning at least once a month for a few minutes, because this will prevent the system from deteriorating. If you notice the person in front of you is driving unsafe, then pay attention to their front wheels so you can anticipate their next move and not be surprised. This old lady fell while delivering pizza, and you won't believe what happened to her. The lady is a 72-year-old great-grandmother who works at Domino's, and one day while she was delivering pizza, she fell. The homeowner rushed outside to make sure she was okay, but the only thing she was worried about was that she damaged their food.
Sorry.
Are you hurt?
I ruined your food.
The lady used to work at a school as a lunch lady, but she took the job at Domino's Pizza because she needed the money. The homeowners felt terrible that she was working at the age that she is, and not because she wanted to, but because she had to. So they posted the video of her falling onto Facebook along with a link to a GoFundMe page. Just the next day, they went to Domino's and found her working there and told her that they made a GoFundMe page for her. Then they revealed that it made $235,000 and she was able to retire. This lady sees a crying man forced to throw a package in the trash. One day, Evelise Hernandez was getting dropped off at the airport in Florida by her boyfriend. He decided to wait with her until she got through security, but they noticed the man in front of them was taking longer than usual. The security wasn't letting the man take one of his bags through. The couple couldn't see what was in the bag, but they figured it was something important because he was almost in tears. The security also wouldn't let him put it in the lost and found. They made him put the bag in the trash. Since Evelise's boyfriend wasn't going through security, he went to the trash can and got the bag. Inside was a snow globe with a little girl on it and a couple on the other side. Evelise posted about this on Facebook and it went viral. The shop that sold the snow globe saw the post and reached out to her with the name of the person who bought it. In the end, they were able to meet up with the person that bought it and return it to her. This dad loses it after finding out what the babysitter did to his daughter. Jason Weshy, the father of 3-year-old Hannah, is a hardworking man, and some days he just can't get everything done that he wants to while looking after his daughter. So he decided to look around for a babysitter, and he got recommended one by a friend. The 35-year-old babysitter named Lindsay had been looking after his daughter for a few months now, when one day she phoned 911 to report that Hannah had fallen to the ground unconscious. Jason rushed to the babysitter's house as soon as he found out, and when he got there, he saw his daughter on the ground unconscious with a black eye. She was brought to a children's hospital where she had to have part of her skull removed to relieve the swelling in her brain. When the cops questioned the babysitter, she admitted that she was shaking the girl, which caused the girl to fall over onto concrete and be put in a coma. The little girl was left brain dead, and after 3 days, she was pronounced dead. The babysitter was charged with child endangerment and assault, but she pleaded not guilty and was let go free. This April Fool's joke leaves a teacher shocked. This teacher has a rule where if your phone rings in class, you have to answer it on speaker. So for April Fool's, a student decided to get her friend to call her pretending to be a nurse and tell her that she was pregnant. And the teacher's reaction is priceless.
That's okay. I'm very sorry. I've been expecting this